number of members of the DNC support these reforms. Let's move forward and just vote by acclamation to make sure that we go out of here and that our focus is to win elections and to get Republicans out of power and to get rid of Donald Trump in 2020.
So then, Ed, what was your read on all of this from the need to the outcome?
Yeah, so I think Maria hits the nail on the head here in that superdelegates have never changed the outcome of an election, which kind of underscores the fact that if they haven't changed the outcome of an election, then why do they need a vote in the first place? I'm saying this, by the way, as a former superdelegate who enjoyed a vote at least one convention. And, you know, it really didn't make a lot of sense. Superdelegates still retain an enormous amount of influence in the party. These are the party luminaries who guide the process year in and year out, regardless of whether or not there is an election. And this change that came through today is something that Democrats have been struggling with for a decade. When I was a superdelegate in 2008, that was the first time those votes became something in the primary process where it really hit fever pitch. And you remember a lot of the back and forth between the Clinton people and the Obama people. That we had a chance for reform in 2009. Shortly after that, we got a little bit. We didn't get enough. What happened today was the culmination of a decade's worth of work. I'm proud of the Democratic Party for making this change. Maria was right. It's an important message we send to the voters. These primaries, these elections, they're not as much about the candidates or the party as they are about the voters. And today, they sent an important message saying that the party agrees.
So then, Ed, while you're saying, you know, this was good, you're in total agreement with, you know, the evolution of this vote and the outcome of the vote, but then does that mean that you're also in agreement with Bernie Sanders and many of his, you know, supporters who said, you know, superdelegates just had too much power and they were kind of, you know, setting the stage for the outcome of the vote, and removing some power was necessary?
I don't necessarily agree with that, because remember, Clinton also had the lion's share of superdelegates in late 2007, early 2008, and it didn't go her way. The tide during one of these primaries can change quite a bit, and in fact, you saw the tide change with Bernie Sanders when he was able to pick up steam late in the primary cycle in 2016. So whether they had too much power or not enough power, I think is really kind of a moot point at this point. The thing that's important is that they don't have a vote anymore. And that is what not only the Bernie people wanted, but in the end, the institution wanted as well. And on the first ballot, look, in a sense, in the case of a tie, you got to break a tie somehow. You know, I'm a soccer player. You got to break a tie in soccer with penalty kicks. People don't like that either. You got to break the tie somehow. There's got to be some way. So the second and third ballot, I don't think is as big of a deal. It's the first ballot that's really important. And by the way, I don't think it's gone to a second ballot in my lifetime. I think maybe 68 might have been the last time that happened.
So is this, you know, a reset for the party, Maria?
I think it kind of is, especially because the issue of superdelegates and the primaries was so contentious in 2016. And I think it's really important to have that reset, because today, Frederica, the majority of millennials who agree with every single value, progressive value of the Democratic Party, the majority of them don't identify as Democrats. They identify as independents. And I think what they saw during the 2016 primaries alienated them from being able to become full-fledged Democrats. So our hope is that these reforms, these changes, will show them that they indeed, there is transparency, they indeed have a voice, we are listening to them, and that we want them to be not just full-fledged representative of the values that we hold, but full-fledged players in the process from the very beginning.
And Ed, last word on that?
Agreed. Oh, no, I fully agree. I think that this is a level of transparency that we need. I think it's good for the party, but again, most importantly, it's good for the voters.
All right, Edward Espinoza.
And I also think, Frederica, very quickly, I think just very quickly, I think this is also incredibly important because Republicans have been chomping at the bit to be able to paint Democrats as being a divided party. We are not that. We are anything but. We're going to move forward to make sure that these criminals in Congress and the criminal in the White House are out.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Frederica.
We'll be right back. Senator John McCain tweeting this today. The entire McCain family is overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support from around the world Her tweet coming just a day after the family announced the senator is halting treatment for brain cancer. And the former head of the Centers for Disease Control is facing charges of forcibly touching a woman. Dr. Thomas Frieden is accused of grabbing the woman without her consent during a party at his home in October. He was arrested Friday and faces 3 criminal charges. Frieden has been released on his own recognizance. And in a shocking turn, Elon Musk has given up on his plan to take Tesla private. The billionaire stunned investors earlier this month when he announced he would remove the electric car maker from the stock market. Musk said the sudden change in heart came from talking to Tesla shareholders and hearing their advice that he should keep the company public. All right, thanks so much for joining me this Saturday. I'm Frederica Whitfield. The news continues with Ana Cabrera. But first, here's this week's Turning Points.
Back in the day, I was just trying to survive the conditions of my life. Now, I ain't surviving no more. I'm thriving. Both my mother and father dealt with addiction. So I participated in drugs and of just a street life, and it led me to being locked up. At 20 years old, I was living in like a crack house. I was 110 pounds, and so I had to hit a bottom, and the most unlikely person walked in. Somebody I hated, my father. So the person that kind of introduced me to that world actually introduced me to the door out of that world. So the first step was letting go of the substances. And then I got exposed to meditation when I got serious about practice. I wanted to take it into these neighborhoods where the suffering was really great. We find ourselves floating in San Francisco. A lot of people come to Friday night to look inside. People that been through addiction, incarceration, older people and tech people come meditate with us. The practice helps me in so many ways.
Gang of 17 angry Dems are having a field day as real corruption goes untouched. No collusion. Now, this latest blast comes just days after the president said the attorney general never took control of the Justice Department. That shot drew out Jeff Sessions, who fired back, saying he won't be compromised over political considerations. CNN White House reporter Sarah Westwood's joining us now. One of the president's tweets also honed in on the message that the attorney general serves at the pleasure of the president. Sarah, the president obviously very unhappy with his attorney general. What are you hearing from there on this relationship now between the president and the AG?
Well, that's right, Anna. President Trump's anger at his attorney general was on full display this week as his associates face a growing wave of legal problems. Sources tell CNN that Trump has privately raised the idea of firing Sessions several times within the last several weeks. Trump has long been dissatisfied with his attorney general, both over the progression of the Russia investigation and over the lack of progress at the Justice Department of what Trump considers what should be an investigation into the corruption he sees at the FBI. But aides and allies have counseled Trump against removing Sessions, both because it could have implications for special counsel Robert Mueller's probe. There's an obstruction of justice component to that investigation, and because it could have major political ramifications heading into the midterms. On Capitol Hill, Trump's Republican allies have been warning him about the difficulty he would face if he tried to get another attorney general nominee confirmed right now. But of course, the feud between Trump and Sessions is heating up this week, with Sessions, as you mentioned, firing back at the president for the first time and Trump ramping up his attacks on his attorney general. Anna?
All right, Sarah Westwood at the White House. Thank you. The walls are closing in on President Trump. That's what my next guest said about the president's growing legal problems. That was before Paul Manafort was found guilty, before Michael Cohen, the president's longtime personal attorney, pleaded guilty and implicated the president in campaign finance violations. Washington Congressman Danny Heck is joining us now from Seattle. He's a Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Heck, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. I want to get to the closing in walls in just a moment. But first, let me ask you about the president's newest attack on Attorney General Jeff Sessions. The president seems to be laying the groundwork for firing Mr. Sessions, and Republicans seem like they're giving him the green light. What do you think? What would firing the attorney general mean?
Well, he may or may not be getting to the point of firing. Instead, he may be just trying to change the subject or deflect from all the incredible bad news he had this week. I think there are a couple of deterrents from actually pulling the trigger on this, although he may. The first of which, of course, is Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein would become the acting Attorney General, and we all know how President Trump feels about that. And secondly, it's not clear to me whatsoever, Lindsey Graham's tweet notwithstanding, that the president